Welcome to Ask Me Anything, featuring spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ask Me Anything. I'm spiritual medium, psychotherapist, and author Kellee White. I have such a special show tonight. I'm so excited about my show tonight. But let me say hi to a few people, and then I'm going to do the astrology because I'm sure you can feel the energy right now. We have a lunar eclipse in about, I think it starts in about 4 or 5 hours. So you can start to feel that energy. But let me say hi to everybody. Hi, Dee Dee from Chicago. Oh, I'm so glad. Isn't it going to be a great show tonight because it's on resilience and renewal. And I'm sorry you're battling COVID for the second time. Been there, done that. Like a lot of us. Sorry about that. Hi, Vera from Ontario, Canada. Oh, I'm so glad you're with us. Hi, KP Sweeney. Hi, Therapy Gal Sue. I love saying that. Hi, Lori Letterby. Yes, these energies are crazy energies. They're really intense energies. Hi, Elizabeth Preston. You know, I want to remind everybody, and Elizabeth, you just reminded me of this with your beautiful horses, and I know you live not too far from me. So just remember, everybody, the animals feel these energies too. So bring in your animals, if you, not your horses probably, but unless they're miniature horses, which would be a lot of fun. But animals are going to be feeling this energy a lot. You might find they either not eating, they're lethargic, they are moody, they, whatever, they're picking up these energies. Hi, Jen Tran from LA. How are you? Hi, Sarah Stone. Hi, Judy. Hi, Robert. Hi, Pamela. Hi, Lori Counts. I was thinking about Kiko, Lori, when I said that. Hi, Marge. Hi, Vicky. And I'm thinking about Piper when I said that. Hi, Linda. Hi, Marge from Japan. Hi, Mari. So glad that you're with us from Japan. Hi, Lori. It is insane time. Glow. Hi, Glow. You lost your husband 18 months ago. I'm so sorry. So tonight's topic, we are going to help everybody with resilience because I have the best guest on tonight. Hi, Doreen Foxwell. Yes, it's almost a full lunar eclipse tonight. And Jean from Arizona. Hi, Jean. She says we're getting a major wind and rainstorm right now. Wow, lots of energy. God, I'll tell you, these are some times. Hi, Amy. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Judy. Hi, Navigating Grief. I love that. I'm so glad you're with us, Dr. Constant Clancy. Hi, Andrea. So, hi, Michelle. Yes, this energy is something else. I got to tell you, it is something else. But I'm going to talk about the astrology for tonight before we get into our very special guest tonight, because I'm so excited to have her on. She's a really dear friend of mine, and I'm so excited. But I know everybody can feel this eclipse energy. And I want to mention, as I talk about tonight's eclipse, I want you to know that there will be people, because we have another eclipse in 2 weeks on March 29th. And this energy, we have a major eclipse, a lunar eclipse tonight, that will be felt, the energy will be felt really pretty powerfully for the next 48 hours or so. And then 2 weeks later, we have another large eclipse with 7 planets in Vedic astrology, all in one conjunction of Pisces. That's a lot of Piscean energy. So that will be life-changing. And I'm going to be talking about that in the next week or so. But what I want to say about this is some people will have extraordinary experiences during these eclipses. It's not all doom and gloom. It's intense. And I'm always thrilled when people are having really good experiences during this period of time. And there will be those people that have them. There will also be people that will have deeply challenging experiences, because these eclipses, and we'll just talk about tonight, really, this one, this is about, and this period of time is about learning and growing. So this is a total, they call it a blood moon total lunar eclipse. And the last time we had a full lunar eclipse was November, I think, of 2022. So this is a rare eclipse, and it's going to be in Leo in Vedic astrology at 29 degrees of Leo. So you've heard me talk about the 29 degree before, and 29 degree is symbolic. It means that we're on the verge of something critical. 29 degree is a critical degree. It's a degree of fate. So that means fated events occur within, soon. I mean, probably within the next 48 hours, I would think. But in our lives, things can happen. I've already had a couple of big bombshells today for myself. So things really start to happen right away. And in addition to this, the eclipse, in addition, at the same time today and tomorrow, because the eclipse starting in a few hours, it may hit some people, like on the West Coast, it'll start on Thursday today, March 13th. But with other people on the East Coast, it'll start around midnight or 1 on the 14th of March. But at the same time, in addition to this, we have Saturn and the Sun in conjunction coming together in Aquarius. And at the same, close to the same degrees, Saturn's at 28 degrees and the Sun is at 29 degrees. Again, that 29 mark. And that's an omen for transition. So we've got an eclipse and we have a Saturn-Sun conjunction. That's an omen. So things are starting to change. There'll be what I probably should say, it's like a closing of a chapter or finishing of a chapter. And so a lot of lives will change. People will get married. People will get divorced. People will be passing. People's careers will change. And politically, out in the world, there will be triggers in the world. There could be, because it's in Leo, and Leo represents the sun, and it's a triggering point for the planet right now, because it could lead to leadership crises. And Leo impacts the government, and so there would be political upheaval, stock market instability, which we've seen, social unrest, and also because Sun and Saturn represent opposing energies. So this is a really powerful time of transformation. I will say that if this energy also has a lot to do, it's kind of interesting, with the father figure. So if you have a father, there could be, some situations with your father. Your father might have some health concerns, or you might be, dealing with old issues from your father. And it was so funny when I started really thinking about the father issue. I was like, well, at least I don't have to worry about that because my father had passed, is actually what I was thinking. I was thinking, whew, I dodged that bullet. And then I got a call from my sister. Oh my God, I have a stepfather. I just spaced on that one. And he did a face plant. He fell right on his face and broke his nose. So these are powerful energies. And again, if you have a father, a stepfather, somebody who's like a father figure, there could be some, emotions around that as well. Also, I want to mention, so we've got this eclipse. So the best thing to do is rest. Like after this show, just if you can, rest. Don't overexert yourself. Drink a lot of water. If you can, meditate today. Go to bed early. That's what I plan to do. Do not put your crystals out. So for people that are asking me, should I put my crystals out because it's this extraordinary full moon? Do not. This is not what we call good energy. The Vedas never believed that eclipses had good energy. So do not put your crystals out for cleaning. It's really not a time for that. It's really a time to go inward. So that's what I would do, and really have really good positive thoughts. Again, some people are going to have extraordinary experiences during this time. It's a very special time here. And then on Saturday, on March 15th, the Ides of March, until April 7th, Mercury, the planet of communication, retrogrades, and it's going to be in Pisces. So in Pisces, it's weak, it's debilitated. And when it retrogrades, it means to go back and to revisit, to redo, reflect. But it also has trouble with communications and with travel. So if you are traveling today, tomorrow, the next day, really pack a lot of patience. Bring extra things that you might require, that you might need, extra medication, extra whatever. Pay attention if you are going to sign anything. This is not necessarily the greatest time to buy a house. If you are, I know a lot of people are asking me, is this a good time to buy a house? if you can wait until this confusion energy, because this energy is very foggy, and it will only get foggier for the next at least 3 weeks. If you can wait now sometimes we can't wait. Sometimes we need that new this or that new that, and we have to get this and we have to sign this. And that's fine. But pay attention to anything you're signing. Really read and reread and pay attention. And the other thing is, please pay attention to driving. If you have to drive during these times, people are not in their bodies. They don't know what there's a lot going on in the world. There's a lot. And it's the kind of energy that goes out and is shaking people up. So they're not paying attention. People are drinking more. If they're drinking, not paying attention and driving, that's a problem. So you have to think like that, like be in your body, start thinking of everything you can that brings you gratitude, everything you can to keep your energy up and up and up, okay, during these times. These are challenging times, but we wanted to be here for these challenging times. And again, for some people, it's going to play out really amazing. And some people, it's going to be challenging. I suspect with me, it'll be challenging. Eclipses, they do this to me every time. Anyway, so that's the astrology for today. And today I'm going to be answering certain questions that have to do with our topic tonight. So I really want to I'm going to talk about my guest because I'm so excited to have my guest on tonight, who is a really dear, dear friend of mine. I mean, really, we go back a ways, and she's just like a sister to me. So I have, I'm going to read her biography because I think it's just a wonderful, wonderful. And I want you guys to know who she is, because you want to talk about somebody who's strong. Oh my gosh. So Mary Ann Cloyd is my dear friend's name, Mary Ann Cloyd, and she's the author of a book. You guys, I could not put this book down. Dr. Shirley and I both read it. And I think we read it in 24 hours, less than that. I think we just zipped through this book because it was so good. And I know Maryann, but it's so good. She's the author of The Audacity to Wonder. The Audacity to Wonder. And she was determined to rise through resilience and purpose, which is what we're going to be talking about tonight, from her humble beginnings in a small Texas town to breaking barriers in corporate leadership. Let me tell you what, this gal is big time. Mary Ann Cloyd's journey is nothing short of inspiring. She's a retired senior partner at PwC, which is PricewaterhouseCoopers. And for people who don't know who PwC is, it is the second largest professional services network in the world. And it's considered one of the big four accounting firms. This is big. Maryann has held influential roles, including leading the Governance Insights Center and serving on global boards. Her story is a testament to resilience, adaptability, and the power of purpose. Beyond her professional achievements, Maryann is a passionate advocate for inclusivity, leadership, and giving back. She serves on multiple boards, including Fresh Del Monte and the Geffen Playhouse, and remains committed to empowering others to build their legacy. Now residing in New York City, Maryann continues to inspire with her story, her service, and her mission to lead with integrity. Get ready to discover the remarkable journey of a woman who turned challenges, and I'm going to tell you, these are big-time challenges, into opportunities and left a lasting impact on the world. So her book isn't just a memoir. It's really an inspiring journey that will motivate you to persevere, lead with purpose, and embrace your potential. So I'd love to welcome, to Ask Me Anything, Mary Ann Cloyd. Welcome.
Kellee, thank you.
Hi, Maryann. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of you.
Well, that is so lovely. I just want to say you love me, So
I do.
You're just being kind.
No, I mean, Maryann, your story it was so captivating that Shirley, and everybody who watches the show knows Dr. Shirley and Pellizzeri, we were both speechless. I mean, tell everybody, let's start from the beginning, Maryann. Tell everybody how we met.
Well, I knew because, and I'm assuming your audience, Kelly, a lot of them know about your mom.
They do. I talk about my mom, Lou, often. Yeah.
And so I knew Lou before I knew Kelly.
Yeah.
And I got to Lou because I went through a divorce, and my divorce attorney, like the first day I met her, said, Maryann, you have got to go see Lou because you need somebody to talk to. And I remember it was pretty close to love at first sight with your mom,
Truly
Kelly. I mean,
was.
she was like really, it became very close. And I remember Lou's description of me was, Maryann, she said, I didn't think you would stay with me long term because she said, I think she described me as a garden variety neurotic.
Yeah.
But sometime not, I actually don't know how long I had been with your mom when you were invited in. And Kelly came in and I was with Kelly and Lou, and Kelly did her first reading for me.
I did.
And I remember one of the first things you said is, "Oh my, you really didn't know me at all." But
I did
she's
not.
like, she looked at me and she said, "Boy, you had a really harsh entry into this world." And I remember going, "Whoa, wow, well, yes, I
was
think by most people's
amazed.
terms, I did."
Yeah. Oh, Mary Ann, that's an understatement. And the more we got to know each other, I was fascinated by how you got from there to there. Like I'm always curious, how does somebody survive in this world it's a tough world? And you were born with in a very humble situation. To get from where you were to where you are now is some extraordinary, actually, I think. Can you tell everybody a little bit about your backstory here?
So the backstory, which I think is, I still am just marvel at your first reaction when you met me. But I
Oh,
was
yeah.
born. I mean, I grew up in a very small town in Texas. I never really knew my mother. My mother left at some point when I was still an infant, but I don't really know when because nobody talked about it. Right. And my father I was raised by my father. So my parents, I guess figured out, were obviously divorced. She left, she went elsewhere, but my dad had me. So think about this, somebody born in the mid 50s in Texas, and the father gets the child in a divorce. I was essentially raised by his parents. I mean, he was working, he had to, and then I remember as a kid my dad coming in and explaining to me that my mother had died. And I think I have vague memories of maybe meeting her once or twice, but I'm not sure. She lived in California. He asked me if I wanted to go to the funeral. I said no.
Oh,
I
so
didn't
I didn't
know.
realize she was still alive when your dad actually told you she had died.
Yes. No, because she had, I think, so the answer is, I don't even know how he found out, but he walked into my grandparents one night and said, Maryann, whatever he said, is your mother died. And I'll take you to the funeral if you want to go. And and my father was a very devout Catholic, so much so that even though he was divorced, he wore his wedding ring. And I realized, there's things you realize when you're looking back as an adult. He then dated and remarried, but only after my birth mom died.
Wow. I mean, even that's unusual. That's
Yeah.
unusual. Right.
Nobody talked about it. I mean, I know sort of kind of what I can piece together, but
Yeah.
not much really.
Did you ever feel less than? Did you ever feel, I don't know,
I
like
felt different. I felt different. Different is the word I would, if you looked back and asked me to describe it in one word, it would be different.
Oh my gosh.
In every way. In every way.
Did that give you strength? Did you want to fit in? Did you care to fit in?
It's a great question. I think the answer is probably yes and no. So the answer is yes, I did. It's hard, and that's what I would tell anybody today. No kid wants to be different.
Right.
Right. I mean, and certainly, but did it ever stop me from being who I was? Not completely,
Yeah.
Where
do you think your strength came from? Because you have to have a lot of strength to get to where you ended up.
The only thing that has ever made sense to me, Kellee, and it's part of, again, if you go back to how you and I met and you doing a reading for me, and you is the only thing that has ever made sense to me is there have to have been past lives. Because nothing else, I cannot look at myself, and I remember this, I'm thinking this long before I met you, that it's like that nothing else made sense to me. Nothing else made sense to me is how I adjusted, because somehow I always managed to adjust to whatever was thrown my way. And don't misunderstand me, like, like lots of mistakes that I made along the way, or lots of interesting hands I got dealt along the way, however you would want to put it. But but that's the only thing that made sense to me.
The only thing that makes sense to me is that, I mean, you're a very old soul, that not from around here, and I don't mean that part of Texas. I just mean not from around here. I mean, to otherworldly, intergalactic, a different type of soul that came in to have a physical experience on Earth. So, because you had, would you say that you had resilience?
Oh, absolutely.
No and then question. How do we determine where this resilience comes from?
This is where I go back to, somehow it's just part of who I am. Yeah. Right. I mean, and I look back, and it's just the way I reacted to things. It's just, because it wasn't that somebody taught me.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't that somebody said, Maryann, here is what you need to do to get through this situation. Or Maryann, if you are confronted with this, here's how it's going to happen. I don't remember having any of that, Kellee.
Wow. Okay.
I don't remember having any of that growing up. I don't remember. I guess
what I'm curious about is, because you've got dealt so many blows after blows after blow. How in the world did you have the energy or the fortitude? Or we're talking small town Texas. We're talking, and didn't you stay in Texas for small town Texas for a long time, or
for a very long time? I mean, I grew up there. I went to university there. I worked the first 10 years of my career in Texas.
In Texas, okay.
In Texas, and before moving to California, and was spent, the large portion of my adult life in Southern California before, ending up in New York.
Right. Wow.
But yeah.
But it's just amazing to me that you were able to just keep going. I mean, I think that resilience is such a big part of it, because, so many people get stuck in the belief system that they are, well, I'm born here, and so my dad didn't go any further. I didn't have a mom. My mom abandoned me. That's a big thing. You didn't get to. Let's talk about that. You did not get stuck in abandonment.
Well, I'm sure I had abandonment issues somewhere along the way that people like your mom would have helped deal with. But no, I did. And I guess I look at, even today, what I realize is somehow it was in me to just work through all of these things. I don't like to say I'm a survivor. I mean, I prefer to say I'm somebody who chooses to live and enjoys life. And the positive side of all of that is it's made me who I am. And it's gotten me where I am. And had I not, I would even say, Kellee, you are one of the most important people in my life. Okay. Aww, had I not been through all the things that I did every step of the way, I wouldn't have been to you.
That's just true. That is
right?
True. Probably.
That's just a fact. That's just a fact of, and that's how I look at it. I tend to look at it, it's like, okay, all of these things
I have to believe you have guides that were handing you, like, here we go. We're going to go over here. We're going to go over here. Because I remember, even when my mom met you, she said, she was like, you've got to meet Maryann. She's so great. You got to meet her. And then
you never told me that.
Oh yeah, she was all over. She thought you were the most wonderful thing ever. And she said to me, she's got to write a story. And I remember her telling you have to write your story, because your story is so profound. And you come from, there was a lot of dysfunction there.
Oh, yes.
Right. I mean,
Yeah, major dysfunction. And yes, and your your mom begged me to write the book, actually. And I remember she was like, and her comment was, and she's like, Mariann, you have to write this, and you have to do it because I think it can help other people. And I don't, that's
right.
your mom. I would never say that. And I remember at one point, I don't think you were there. She even looked at me and she's like, Mariann, please will you do it while I'm still around? Because if I'm still here, I can help promote this for you. So I let her down in that way, in that I
Yeah,
did not
Maryann.
get it done while she was still on this side. But
Who's to say she hasn't been helping both of us
I know
all
she's
along?
been.
You know that.
Well, and and Kellee, to me, and one of the, because Kellee is, I mean, as I know all of your guests, your friends, your viewers here know, your book came out a few months before mine did.
Yeah, it did.
And part of what's fascinating to me, because I devoured your book, I mean, I got it, I read it immediately, and obviously a lot of it I had lived through with you.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it I knew about just as we became very good friends. And I knew you were writing a book, like you knew I was writing a book,
Right.
but we never talked about it.
Correct. We had other things to talk about.
Other things we talked about, other than saying, how's it going? What am I doing? You know what? But we never talked about, here's the layout, here's the content. So when I read it, I was, number one, is I'm sure everybody that's listening knows what a phenomenal book it was. But I was on the other part of some of that. And my book, by the time yours came out, was, for all intents and purposes, done. So, I mean, it was in that, very final, mild edits, getting ready to push the button. And and as I was doing those final reads, it's like, oh my God, it's like, I've got the other part of this story that Kellee was telling. And it's just, and it was, and you would, if somebody, you would almost think that, oh, you planned it this way, right? So on this particular thing, you're going to talk about what was happening, then I'm going to talk about the other side. Yeah. And we never talked about it.
Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Which to me was just wild.
It was just
wild.
That really was. But I mean, really, I think overcoming and being able to move on is such a great topic and a great theme. What do you think? What are some of the thoughts about, oh, I love this, not choose to be a victim, or, you don't need to choose to be a victim. You can choose to be strong or be a victim. That is accurate. I love that statement. But what do you think about going forward? Like some of the, some things along the way that helped you along the way. Were there certain people that came into your life?
So, I mean, things that help friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would go and friends and professional help. So somebody like your mom, Shirley, I found when I was still in Waco, through a friend, and this is where I think the universe puts things there for us, that I had an amazing first time in my life. Imagine Waco, Texas. This is
in the late
70s,
50s.
80s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but when I met Bernie, this is probably the early 80s.
Okay.
Early 80s. Met a psychiatrist in Waco, Texas, who was from New York and Jewish.
I mean, that's unheard of.
That's unheard of.
Yeah.
That is just unheard of. But it was like, I knew it was actually someone who worked for one of my clients. We became friends. She told me about him. So he was of tremendous help to me.
And that was the first time you had been in therapy.
That is the very first time I had been in therapy. I was, late 20s at this point, had been working. It's when I was still living in Waco before I moved to Dallas, was somebody who was just instrumental in helping me see that I was in a place where I didn't fit in, where I didn't belong. And it wasn't that I was, it's like I just didn't belong there. I didn't belong. And this is not a statement. It's just, it was not the place for me. Right. So, and to me, that's like figuring there's no right or wrong. It's just a statement of, okay, this is not the place for me. And finding the strength and courage to move on from that, which isn't easy.
It's not easy. But how do you think, was it an internal drive?
Oh, there has to have been some internal drive there. Yeah. And then just some things are just instinctive. I can't account for it any other way. I'll give you a business example, but you could compare this to life. And I remember when there was first, as we were talking in the professional world about women and how women got ahead, and all of the challenges. And I was, it's hard for me to say, but I mean, obviously pretty early on this, right? I mean, I was, I'm of an age where I was on, it wasn't like it
Maryann,
is today.
you were up there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and I remember talking to someone, and it was interesting. It was when I was running a pretty large business unit for the firm, and we had just had someone who had resigned, and it was someone who was Black. They had resigned, and the top rated performer, absolutely top rated. And I was very, very sad to see him go. And when they were leaving, they did an exit interview, and I just remember he suggested that he felt some level of discomfort in this where I was. And I was mortified, right? I mean, I was just mortified. It's like, oh my God, how can that be? It's like, I don't see. And I remember talking to another, she was a relatively young woman. She had just joined the firm in recruiting. She had her master's out of USC. And I asked her, I said, and she was Black. I said, you just have to tell me, is there something going on here I don't see that I'm oblivious to? And she looked at me, she's like, well, no, Mary Ann, there's no overt discriminate. And she said, but sometimes if you're different than everybody else, you just don't feel like you belong. And that resonated with me as I'm thinking back to all of my time. And she said, and she gave the example of, and she said, I'll tell you about my husband. He works for whatever it was, a law firm, whatever. And she said, like, if all the other people that he works with, belong to the country club and they're playing golf and he's not part of that, he is excluded because he's not there. Right. And when she said that, it dawned on me what I had, again, it had to have been instinctive because nobody told me. I always found a way to make it easy for the men I worked with. Right. So, and you can, if you got, and again, you would say pretty good instinctive skills, impact, whatever. And, there's some people that just don't like you. Yeah. Race has nothing to do with it, and you would know. But I made it easy for the guys. I figured out that I don't know. There was something that's like, oh, okay, they're all going to be talking golf. Okay, I don't play golf, but I have to know enough. And if there's like a professional thing going on, I need to be able to join in I need to make it easy for them to find something to talk to me about, so that I am not standing over there in a corner all by myself.
Interesting.
And, how did I know to do that? I don't know. I wish I could tell you.
Your instincts.
I used my instincts, and apparently they were, like I said, of course I made mistakes, but
I love that you were able to open up, and like you'd get hit with a piece of information, you would process it, and then you'd figure out how to move forward. Not everybody can do that, but everybody needs to do that. Like, you'll have some information, you'll learn something, and then really sit on it, which is what you would do. And then you would you've always been a great thinker that way. And I think that's really important that you're able to do that. That's resilience. And that's also learning how to move forward.
Kellee, and the other part of that, and I didn't, and it's, because, and been through just some interesting things in life, including the divorce I went through to get to you. Yeah. Which not your mother, which your mom would say was one for the record books.
It was. You guys have got to read her book. Wait, Renee, put her book up. I'm telling you, if you're going through a divorce, if you're going through anything, this is the book, The Audacity to Wonder. The Audacity to Wonder. It is so good. And you can find that at maryanncloyd.com or amazon.com or whereyoubuyBooks.com.
Kellee, thank you.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. What were you going to say?
So forgiveness, right? And the tie that, because I'm not even sure that if you asked me to define what forgiveness was, that I would have been able to do it. Right, because people will always say, "Oh, you should just forgive somebody," which is So, and then I remember being on, and it was a realization that, oh, I know how to forgive, and I don't even know that that's what I'm doing. right? Because in this, and I'll give that the context to the divorce I went through, where, to your point, from humble beginnings, and I'm still writing him a check, right? So that is just a fact of life. It's just it just is what it just is what it is. And to this day, I will have people that will say, "How can you not be bitter about that?" And
what
I'm not
she's saying, everybody, is that she had to pay alimony.
Yeah, well, part of my and then yes, I did, and then a portion of everything I had worked for, because California property tax laws, and like big portion of my retire, all it just is. It's the law.
Yeah.
It just is. And it was like, how, and to this day I will have friends. It's like, how can you? It's like, well, do I like it? No, but you know me well enough to know I obviously, not. And
You
the
handled
way
it with such grace.
I realized that some of that, I can't come up with a better word than forgiveness. And again, I was like on a meeting and it was someone who was sharing a story. And it was a man who was sharing it in a very personal way. Someone who grew up, and again, just coincidentally, in South Texas, but he was, I think, Hispanic. And he talks about when he went to school being, again, very different, and being beat up and being, challenged and beat up, and came from the wrong side of the tracks, the whole thing. And it was someone who went on, had a very, went to Yale, had a very, very successful business career, made a lot of money. And he said that he was going back to his high school reunion. And he was going back with the purpose of, he wanted to meet these 2 or 3 boys who had severely beaten him up, because he's harbored like a grudge again. And he wanted to meet them and see them, to say, hey, look at what I did. Look at how
Right.
And he said when he showed up and he went over to them, he realized they had no clue who he was, and had not remembered him, had no idea. And he said at that moment in time, he recognized that for decades, he had been carrying this, this revenge. And he said it didn't hurt them. He said, because whatever they had done didn't matter to them. And he said, and that was when he had the realization that him carrying those kinds of feelings was hurting no one but him.
Oh.
And I translated that to me when he told that story. It's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that that's what I did. But yeah, that's what, and I never, and again, you've known me long enough, I never really, yes, I wrote snarky notes on some of the checks. And yes, I
It was great.
I did some, I did some things that were a little,
I thought they were priceless.
okay, but they were
and well deserved.
Yeah. I thought they were pretty clever myself. They had no effect on him, but made me feel better for a moment, or thought it was something, it was something we could talk about. And Kellee, I go back to, again, all the time knowing you, your mom, and my friends laughed through this stuff, right? Found a way to just look at the comedy of, all right, well,
one of the things that is in the book that people should be aware of is you talk about sociopathy.
I don't label it that, but yes,
you don't label it. Okay, you refer to. Okay, so it's not
as a person without a conscience.
There you go. That's a great way to say it. I'm the one that calls it that.
I understand.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. So anybody who's had a relationship with somebody without a conscience, it's really extraordinary. Really, really well written and really extraordinary, Maryann.
Yes, and sadly, I managed to do it with more than one.
That's the most. There's so many fascinating stories in your life that it's really amazing. It's just amazing. I'm running out of adjectives for it to describe it, but it really is an incredible book here. And one of the things I was going to mention is about what people can do, and I'm sure you did this a lot when you're working towards resilience, like the people that don't have it naturally and people that get beat down and it's really hard. One of the things is to practice acceptance. Like this could mean actually adopting a strategy that involves taking one thing at a time or being patient. And it's also the way you can reframe things, because you can say, for example, some people might say, this event is horrible. Like your book, they may read your book and go, oh my God, that's a horrible. And there is nothing that I can do. But another way that you can do that, you can actually view the same event and you can say, this is out of my control, but I can focus on what I can do, which I think is what you did, Mary Ann. I think you focused on what you could do.
I think the answer is yes. I did actually. And and on the very worst days, on the absolute very worst days, the way I would ground myself was to say, okay, if this were my last day on earth, what would I do? And I would, and again, and I was working through all this, probably like you and a lot of, so within reason, you still had to, I had to do the things that I had to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after that, on the worst days, I would be like, okay, if this were my last day on earth, what would I do right now? And oftentimes it was something as simple as going in the kitchen and baking something. It's like,
you are
okay,
a wonderful cook.
I am going to go and this is going to be my escape for a while. And I am going to put on jazz. And actually, that's interesting. And I learned something about myself, and only in looking back, is because, as Kellee knows, I love music, but I love jazz would be my passion. In the worst of it, in the worst of the divorce of that one big period, I couldn't listen to jazz. And I could only listen to classical, which would be my second one. And I didn't, and I just remember it's like, and then one day when I knew that it was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm like in a better place, but suddenly it's like, oh, I was ready to put jazz on again.
Isn't that interesting? What do you make of that?
I don't know how deeply it touches my soul, how deeply it touches my inner being. Jazz touches it in a way that nothing else does. And I was so raw, and I was dealing with so much, right, that there just wasn't room for that right then. It was just too raw. It was just too raw. So I found classical at that point just a more soothing way.
Boy, that is so true, Mary Ann. In that raw state, you really can't, you have to almost change the dial completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can heal things. That is, Lori says she loves the way that, the way you're looking at this, because I love that you said too about when the way you ground yourself would be, if this were my last day,
what would I do?
What would I do? That's very effective, actually, for that. One of the other things you did, Mary Ann, is you always maintained social connection with others, which is really important for resilience. Did your friends come and help you? Did you feel supported?
Oh my goodness. So, and it was actually during this that one of my friends coined the phrase FOMAC. So Friends of Mary Ann Cloyd. And this went on. So there was an obvious friend group that was there to support me. And I realized how protective they were, because when there was the second person without a conscience that came into my life after that, and you could just feel it. I am blessed. I am blessed with the most wonderful friends. Amazing.
We all rallied around you.
Oh my God.
At that moment. And my mom was there.
And always do.
We
God.
always rallied. And that
always rallied.
That was a big one. Yes, that was a big one.
It's hard. And I would tell you, I'm just blessed with amazing, amazing friends. And it's hard for me to ask anybody for anything. You know that, right?
I know that.
Don't, but again, my friends, it's kind of like, it's like, yeah, well, no, but they're there.
But these are
I know
big
that.
ticket items that occurred.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what makes the book so interesting. Coming from a humble beginning and then getting higher and higher and higher in your career, and then major stumbling situations, like major things that came along. And to see you continue to grow, and it was like as if you just kept going and going and going, and really rose to such a high level at the corporation you were in. It's just extraordinary. I'm curious, in that world, did they know what you were going through? Did anybody know what you were going through? Because a lot of people out there are in corporate world.
It's really interesting. It's an interesting question that you ask. And I guess everybody knows. So So Kellee doesn't know what I'm going to say because she didn't prep me for this. So there were a handful that did. Okay. So I reached out to, and obviously had to tell some people. So, but not widely known. I mean, I told people bit by bit by bit. But what was interesting is when the book went out, I got a note from somebody who had worked in the firm at the time. And I've been stunned with some of the messages I've gotten that, surprised me that people would pick it up. But this was somebody who worked pretty closely with. She handled a lot of the marketing stuff. And her comment was, she said, Mary Ann, and she's apparently moved from California. She said, I just want you to know, I picked up your book. And she said, I read it with a glass of wine, well, maybe 2 glasses of wine, and sat down and read it. And she said, what's amazing to me is, she said, I knew you that whole time. And I was working with you that entire time. She said, I had no idea that you were going through this. And she said, because you just managed, and it was just a very interesting perspective.
Well, I mean, and that's why I was so thrilled that you told your story, because you're not somebody that goes out and says, look, everybody, this, and this. You're not that person. I mean, we had to really coax you to remember.
Well, and it's still hard. And I've been stunned by, and so many people that have reached out that have said, and it's been, I mean, like friends that have known me for a long time, and it come in, friends that it's like, I knew part of this, but even I didn't know
that was me.
All of this. I mean, I had and you know me better. And that was sort of a recurring, it's like, yeah, I knew bits and pieces of this. And yes, I lived with you through a lot of this, but I had no idea about all of it. And it was funny because, again, in more than one have said you were very brave to do this. Because like, you put it all out there.
Yeah, you do. You put it all out there.
And that was hard. And I did my very best, because I have no idea. And very clear, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm not trying to name names. I'm not trying that is not the purpose of this at all. And it was really just trying to be true to what your mom asked me to do, which is, if I'm going to do this, unless I'm honest about it, and unless I put out all the flaws and all the mistakes that I made, what's the point?
And I tell you, your story is so encouraging for people.
And I don't find, and so what I would say is, when the friends who said it was brave, I would say, that's very kind of you to say that. I feel vulnerable, right? I made this is how I would describe doing something like this. I feel like I made myself very, very vulnerable in putting it out there.
You did, but you did it with such grace, Maryann, and it's such an important story. And one of the ways for resilience, to build resilience, that I don't even know if you're aware of, but it's something that you automatically do, is to give back to the community. Did you know that? That's a real way to build resilience.
I did not.
but you've always done that.
So it is hugely important to me to give back, and give back means in many ways. I mean, it means, because I always tell people to give back from a charitable standpoint. So I have the charities that I am passionate about, and I do give, and I give time, but I get so much more than I give. And this is and to me, giving back also means, I would hope all of you who I love more than you can imagine, I hope you know that I would always be there for you. Right. I mean,
I know.
And this is what I always tell people, my good friends, is I am not the one who will call you every day. I'm not a talk on the phone. But I am the friend that if you need me on the plane tomorrow, if it is at all humanly possible, I will be there.
Is that the truth?
And would want you to ask, and that to me is another, and I sometimes have to remind myself. It was a lesson I was given it's actually the wife of a friend a long time ago. And it was when my dad had died, and he was like, well, what can my wife, your friend, do for you? And I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to bother anybody. And he's like, Maryann, if the situation were reversed, what would you want? So Kelly's heard that, and it would be like, well, I'd want you to reach out to me, because I want to be there for you. You make me feel good by reaching. And he's like, okay, so why do you think she would feel any differently about you? Like,
So true.
good point. So I still have to remind myself of that
Yes.
sometimes. It's like, okay, all right, it's
You
okay.
do.
You can reach out, you can ask. It's okay.
Well, and just by putting the book out, and I think it has really moved you even further along here. And just by, everything that we're talking about is helping so many people. They're getting great comments. They can't wait to read your book. Lori loves the best philosophy, honesty, and humbleness, which is the truth. And also, one of the things to help build resistance, because again, not everybody was born with it, but so you have to practice with it, but is to prioritize self-care. And Maryann, I'm going to let you take this one because my favorite one of self-care is something that you and I discuss a lot. It's called setting boundaries.
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about that for
talk
self-care.
about, you start, Kelly, and then it's,
well, you have
and
to
this is
learn
where
to say no. I mean, I say no first and then I think about it. I mean, say no. If anybody's going to drain your energy, you have to really see them coming and put boundaries out fast.
And this is where the answer is yes. And this is where you also need good friends to remind you and to give you permission. Right.
Yeah, that's very true.
And I think
sometimes
that
you need that. Yeah.
Sometimes you need that. And I think you and I have played that role.
Oh, yeah.
For one another. And I got, so I have some favorite to me that is part of this, boundaries and resilience and all of that. It's some great sayings from Kellee, your mom. And I have shared them with other friends. So your mom is now widely quoted. And one was your mother's, and again, I literally got them written down. And one is the incredible power of not giving a hoot. Now, your mom had a little more colorful way of saying
My
that.
mother was colorful.
Your mother was colorful, but it was like, and I have a friend, somebody who's a really close friend in New York, and she's like, Mary, you have no idea how, and in fact, we were out the other night with another friend, and she's like, this is where you need to have loose understanding, is that incredible power. And one other thing she said to me is, just remember, Maryann, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And I find that incredibly empowering. And sometimes I remind myself, no. And again, we all know that that's not without limits or bounds. We all have to do some things, but in general, right? It's like, and knowing when you don't. And then the other boundary. So Kelly, that in the other example she gave, which I just shared this with somebody the other day, it's because we do have to deal with those people in the world, right? In many ways, whether it be work, whether it be our personal life. And I remember I was talking, and it was like, okay, now this is actually somebody I care about. So there sometimes need to be boundaries, even with,
right.
And but it was somebody who I knew that at certain times could just drain me, right? Just would have and I remember your mom, she's like, Maryann, just pretend like you've got a pane of glass in front of you. And here's how you do that, is you will engage with people. You will engage with them. You will appear you're normal, but you have to protect yourself. So on those occasions, you just need to be able to put up that pane of glass, that impenetrable pane of glass, to protect yourself.
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
And you know what? It really does help.
Yeah.
It really does.
It does, because it also sets the tone for everything, that that this is a boundary here. They may not be able to see it, but they can sure feel
and they don't need to see it sometimes. It's better that they don't see it sometimes.
Right. Boy, is that true. Oh, I love that one. Another way for resilience is to cultivate like a growth mindset. So embrace challenges. You've embraced a new challenge in your life as of a couple of years ago. Can we talk about the new challenge that you embraced, which I thought was incredible?
My fun new one?
Yes, your fun new one. I was blown away by this.
I took up ballroom dancing.
She did.
And it has become almost an addiction to me. It is the most fun. It's good for the body. It's good for the brain. It's good for the mind. I mean, dance with a professional, right? And I laugh, and he's a delightful young Estonian who is competing. I mean, so he is like still literally competing today on his way up, and it's just amazing. But it is, and I find, and I've made the studio environment is just very welcoming. But what's so good about it for me is, one, it's a body exercise. So it's good for the mind, it's good for the body. It requires you to be, as I put it, it's where I go. And in that period of time when I'm dancing, the rest of the world doesn't matter.
Oh
it just
God.
doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And for me, it's like we're learning choreographed, routines. So it's so you can see you're learning steps. I mean, I'm doing the Argentinian tango.
I'm so proud of you.
So much fun.
You have literally, I know my mom.
You won't believe I've come a long way even from the video you've seen. So
I can't wait to see more about it. Oh my gosh, Maryann, I'm so glad that you were on tonight. I mean, everybody is excited about reading your book. They're loving the advice. I mean, so many people, the audacity to wonder. So everybody can get Mary Ann's book. You can get it on her website, MaryanCloyd.com. And you can also find her book on Amazon and everywhere you can find books these days. And it's Facing Fears, which is a great thing. I mean, everybody's saying what a sexy dance set is. Very exciting. For me, I have 3 things coming up. The first one is on April 6th, which is, I think it's April 6th. Oh, yeah, April 5th. No, April 5th. I'm teaching an autism class, actually, with Prajna Avalon, and we are going to talk about navigating autism. So we're going to have lots of tips, lots of information. If you are on the spectrum yourself, or if you know somebody who's on the spectrum, if you have a family member, please join us. It's a 3-hour Zoom class, and it's going to be a lot of information. It's going to be really great, and a lot of tips on how to deal with this. I also am teaching a crystal class on April 20. What is it? April 20. I should know this by heart. April 26. So I have a crystal class with Julianne Siegel, and we're going to be talking about crystals using feng shui and display and what each crystal represents. And then, so join us for that. And then I have a very exciting event with Dr. Shirley and Pellizzeri. Maryann, you'll love this, with Dr. Shirley and Carrie Gonia. And this is going to be the Roots of Healing, the Game of Life, a 3-day healing retreat in Burbank, California. So we're going to get together for 3 days, and it's going to be an extraordinary event. I'll be talking to everybody about from the spiritual standpoint of life, and I'll be doing readings. And Carrie will be doing family constellation, and Shirley will be talking about attachment theory and the shadow. So we have a lot of information to cover, and it's going to be a wonderful retreat. So please join us in Los Angeles, in Burbank, California, June 20th to 23rd. We still have some places available for people. And Maryann, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Kellee,
for being on tonight. And everybody, remember, don't put your crystals out. Take really good care of yourself. Take care of your animals. Everybody is loving this, Maryann. They're loving your story. And pay attention to your emotions tonight, because the emotions are going to be all out today and tomorrow. So take care of everybody. And then next week, I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about the next upcoming eclipse. So take care, everybody. We'll see you soon.
You've been listening to Ask Me Anything, featuring spiritual medium and psychotherapist Kellee White.